Welcome, Dr. Epic here. And what we're going to address in this section is we're going to explore smoking saints, the daughters of God El, dreaming mountains, and magic stones. Because we're going to talk about the subjective reality of the Maya peoples of Central America. There's the outline right up above me. It would behoove you to put it in your notes because we're going to jump right into it. And this is the thing I want to stress. This is the angle we're coming at with sociocultural anthropology. That people do not react to the world as it objectively exists. They react to the world as they subjectively perceive it to be. So we're going to some extent, crawl inside the heads of the Maya and look at how they subjectively see the world and see how it shapes their society. Because the Maya, at least many of them anyway, believe in an accessible, animistic world. There are spirits everywhere. There's spirits in buildings. There's spirits in mountains. There's spirits in the sky. There's spirits in the ground. Some of them are your ancestors. Some of them are not. And some of them are very, very powerful. And what you attempt to do is you seek to maintain amiable, beneficial relationships with the animate souls in the world around you. These spirits can help you if you get into trouble, and they can defend you from your enemies. And some of these spirits are old Maya gods, which have now become Catholic saints. For instance, right up above we have the most obvious instance of an old Maya god becoming a classic saint. There on the upper left, that is an inscription from a vase from the classic Maya period. And it shows a deity whom we've called God El. And he has a couple names in antiquity. One of them is gathered blood. Another manifestation he has is Moan Shan, which means misty sky. He is the god of tobacco. He is the god of wealth. He's the god of lust. He is a smoking god. And as you can see him there, he is in his palace surrounded by his daughters who attend his every need. Pay attention to that. We're going to come to the daughters of God El in a bit. Over the centuries, God El, gathered blood, has converted to Catholicism. And he has become a Catholic saint. And there's the same deity right up above me. He's become Saint Simon or San Simon. And sometimes in his more darkened smoking form, Mashimon, the patron saint of drinking, smoking, fornication, luck, and money. And one of the ways we can tell that Mashimon is the pre-Hispanic god El is because, well, A, he smokes, and God El smoked all the time. But in pre-Columbian depictions, God El has this huge, broad-rimmed hat. And you can see it right over there. He's wearing it even in his palace. That's what's called a merchant's hat. It's this big round hat designed to keep the sun off of you when you're traveling overland or sitting in a marketplace. And in fact, God El has his wise owl sitting on the top of his hat. In the modern day, in the 21st century, his pre-Columbian merchant's hat has become a cowboy hat. And Mashimon always has his cowboy hat, even though most of the time it's black. So when someone wants luck with gambling, when someone wants, his or her, crush to fall in love with them, you go burn a candle for Mashimon. And if you're lucky, Mashimon will take pity on you. And God El has these daughters. Now, there's the depiction right up above my yellow box of God El in his court surrounded by these beautiful women. Older depictions say, oh, these are his concubines or these are his wives. No, that's wrong. Those are the daughters of God El. Those are Maya market women. And we see on the far left, these are some marketplace murals that were uncovered at the city-state of Calakmul. And we can see that these women are in the marketplace, buying and selling. And we can see their strong resemblance to the women of God El's court. The diaphanous clothing, the slender builds, the confident gestures. Because God El is the god of merchants, and the daughters of God El are the Maya market women. And please note, the woman on the lower left, again, has one of those big, broad merchant's hats. Because in traditional Maya culture, marketplace activity, buying and selling this and trading for that, this is not something that men do. The Maya have a very gendered culture. Certain occupations are for men, like clearing the forest, growing corn. Certain occupations are for women, weaving, grinding corn, cooking, and buying and selling in a marketplace. There's been a great book on Maya market women by Ashley Kistler, who's right up above me. And she's actually gone into this market of Chamelco and looked at how the market operates, how this female space dedicated to buying and selling has with its very distinct feminine characteristics. In 21st century American culture, we tend to view mercantilism and capitalism as this very masculine set of relationships where you overcome your competitors and wrestle them to the ground and beat them. And it's this very hyper-aggressive masculine space. The Maya do not view it that way. These are my photographs at the marketplace at San Juan Chamelco. I took some photographs for Dr. Kistler. And as we can see, right up above me, that's what the marketplace looks like. It's one huge building that's open around the roof with all of these mini stalls everywhere. And over on the left is a pair of what these stalls are. All of these stalls are run by women, and pretty much they all sell the exact same things: salt, bean, corns, candles, spices. That there's a lot of similarity. Ramen, they sell a lot of top ramen. There's a lot of similarity in what these women sell, because these women are not really competitors. This is what Dr. Kistler discovered about how these marketplaces work. Right up above me is the butcher lady. She butchers chickens and turkeys, and there she is cutting up a chicken. It used to be some kind of bird, but now it's just a mess. Anyway, Ashley, Dr. Kistler came up with 4 main points about how this market is operating. And one, she points out the obvious, that the whole of the marketplace is overwhelmingly feminine. This is a feminine space. It's a market, but it's feminine. Of the 119 stalls at the market at San Juan Chamelco, only 5 of them are run by men. And these are very unusual markets. They don't sell what everyone else is selling. I think one is a butcher, but he's just for beef. The bird butcher is the woman right up above me. And the others, I think, sell electronics and car parts. And they're kind of off to the side, and they kind of understand that they are apart from the rest of the market. 2, the market vendors are full-time vendors. This is their main occupation. If they've got kids, they will bring them to the market. And it is a fairly high status occupation. In the village, to have a market stall in the marketplace is considered very fancy. 3, you get your market stall generally by inheriting it through your mother. So this is a feminine space that's been handed down from mother to daughter over time. One's place in the marketplace is inherited through matrilineal descent. And marketing families have been in the market for generations. If you look at that little pie chart that Ashley made up on the upper left, you can quite clearly see that a very large percentage of the population, 20% got it from either their mother or their grandmother, 3% got it from their mother, 4% got it from either their mother, their grandmother, or great-grandmother, and even larger percent got it from their mother-in-law. That almost everyone in that marketplace, every woman who's working in that marketplace, inherited it from another woman, and generally one that they're related to. 4, this is the biggest point. The women in the marketplace, in this feminine capitalist space, do not view it as highly aggressive competition. They don't view it as a place to drive your competitors out of business. But rather, the market women do not compete. They do appear to be driven, to maximize profits and minimize costs. but they tend to cooperatively settle on agreed prices. They're not trying to undercut anyone at all. And while they do make money, and in fact they are quite profitable, primarily the interactions in the market are not meant to become rich. They're not meant to make a pile of money. According to the women themselves, primarily the interactions in the market serve to build and reinforce social ties. It's a feminine space, it's run by women, and it is there to serve and tie the women more closely together, both with each other and the ancestors that pass this marketplace on to their daughters. Now, they do make money, and quite a bit of it, but in this space, commercial profit is not really the stated goal. The women inherited the space from their mothers or grandmothers, and they inherited that space from their mothers and grandmothers, because these Maya market women, all the way, maybe from the classic period until today, these are all the daughters of God El. They have a divinely appointed position to buy and sell within the market. Now, very different from how we view commercialism. Moving towards a more mythical and a more legendary approach to the Maya worldview is I'm going to tell some of the stories that Dennis Tedlock wrote down in his anthropological book, Breath on the Mirror. Dennis Tedlock is a cultural anthropologist, and he studied Maya culture for decades. And he studied Maya culture so much that, he's practically a Maya. He apprenticed to a shaman and became accepted as a shaman in Maya culture, someone who could access the spirits of the mountains and the spirits of the town and the spirits of the buildings around them. And Breath on the Mirror is a deeply fascinating book. It is a book that attempts to show the subjective Maya perspective of their land from the inside. And in his book, in this mythic, animate landscape, everything is all mixed together. History, legend, dreams, visions, memories, all of these things are mapped onto the features of the land. The shamans, and that's what a Maya shaman looks like right there, the shamans know all of these stories. They know the stories of the spirits of the mountains. They know the stories of the spirits of the rivers, and even the stories of the towns and villages. All of these stories kind of meld together into this timeless present, where the past is the past, but the past is always happening in the present. The past is the present. And because time is cyclical, the past will also be the future. All time is happening together, and a perceptive shaman can perceive all of these events co-occurring, past, future, and present, at the same time. And that's what makes a truly gifted shaman. For instance, you and I are not attuned to the spirits of the place. We do not know the land, and the land does not know us. We are not Maya shamans. So we see this valley, which is in western Guatemala. This is the Valley of Xela, also called the Valley of Quetzaltenango. And what do we see? We see mountains, we see valleys, a volcano in the center. We see mountains and valleys, mists and old volcanoes. But from the Maya perspective, that's what we see, because that's all the land wants us to see. The land doesn't know us, and we don't know the land. So it's only going to show us what you can see with your eyes. But that's not how the Maya see this. The Maya would look at this land and they would tell you a story that is also a dream. And the dream would see this. This is what the Maya shaman would see, looking out at the image above. And Dennis Tedlock wrote down this dream. And this is what he wrote. That what they see is Peter Pallid rides a white horse, while Black Butterfly goes on foot. But Black Butterfly has his genius with them. It is the male resplendent quetzal. That's a very colorful tropical bird. With shimmering green feathers that turn blue when the light shifts. Black Butterfly, armed with a mace, cuts off the head of Peter Pallad's horse. But Peter Pallad runs Black Butterfly through with a lance. Black Butterfly dies, and Black Butterfly's genius flies up over his body and away and out of sight. And this dream that is also a story, I want you to note, this is all told in present tense. This is what the shaman is seeing when he looks at the land. He is seeing Peter Pallad on his horse. He is seeing Black Butterfly defend himself from Peter Pallad and Peter's ultimate victory. But of course, he knows who those people are, because this is something that happened in the past, but they are seeing it in the present. This is a dream of the Battle of Quetzaltenango, the dream of the Battle of Xela, when the Spanish conquistador Pedro de Alvarado, who is Peter Pallad, overthrew and destroyed the Maya army of the Quiche, led by a Maya hero called Tekun Uman, which means Black Butterfly, grandson of 100 hands. This battle took place in the year 1524. Nearly 500 years ago, this battle took place. Yet to a shaman who knows the land, and the land who knows the shaman, he looks at this landscape and he watches the battle before him. He knows that this took place. He watches the battle. It is still happening. This battle will always happen. And indeed, this battle will happen again. And this is how the Maya shamans perceive the landscape. It's animate, it's alive, it's dreaming of what has happened before, it's showing what is happening now, and that will also happen in the future. And if you see in the painting above, in this beautiful Guatemalan mural, there's a Black Butterfly's Quetzal spirit flying in the center, that green bird with the red breast and the long green feathers behind it. The Quetzal has a red breast because that's where Peter Pallad stabbed Black Butterfly through the chest with his lance. So in this animate landscape, it is important to pay homage and offer respect to this animate landscape. And if something happens, you have to ask yourself, well, what is going on with the spirits? If a coyote comes and eats your chickens, you don't get a rifle and go hunt down the coyote. You have to ask yourself why the spirits of the mountain have sent a dog of the mountain to eat your chickens. What have you done to offend the mountain? Have you offered enough at the mountaintop shrines? Is the spirit of the mountain, is the Lord of the mountain upset at you? And if you did offer something, were you cheap? Did you offer the right thing? Instead of going and hunting down this coyote and shooting it, which is what we would do in Texas, the Maya farmer would gather up a little thing of rum, maybe a candle and a bowl of food or two, and take it to the shrine near the top of the mountain. Leave it, burn the candle, pour out the liquor, and leave the food. And apologize to the mountain. And maybe the mountain won't send his coyotes to eat the farmer's chicken. And even when you receive dreams, this is the future appearing in your present. This is your future self dreaming back to what your present self is experiencing. Once, Dennis Tedlock was sitting with his teacher, a guy called Don Mateo, if I'm remembering that correctly. And Don Mateo just starts the conversation with, what is your dream? And Tedlock tells him that he dreamt of this jar that when he picked it up, it broke in half. And the shaman says, oh, that's a bad sign. That means that's you're dreaming of a future. And in this future, an evil spirit is coming to undo your work, because the evil spirit has undone your work in your past. And because the day of the dream, that means this is a day where the female energy is ascendant. That means the evil spirit coming to undo Tedlock's study to be a shaman must have a feminine character. And after asking some more questions about the dream and asking about people he's spoken to, the shaman goes, oh, it's not just any evil female spirit that's out to get you. This is the wailing woman herself, La Llorona, the weeping woman who cries and drowns children. She is coming to undo your work. And that's a still from a very bad horror movie called The Curse of La Llorona. Anyway, La Llorona is cold. She's someone who died in water. So she doesn't like heat. Therefore, they have to make themselves unpalatable to this creature of cold and water. So the shaman decides they have to sip a little bit of kerosene. They're going to sip kerosene, and the kerosene is going to heat their body, and it's going to make them too hot for the Wailing Woman to interfere with. They do this, and this dream of the future that he has had in the present is thwarted, and the Wailing Woman is dispatched. And this is what shamans do. Here's a story of a shaman feeding a stone, feeding an altar. He's pouring liquor into the mouth of the altar. He's feeding it. And shamans can perceive this numinous world. They can perceive the spirit world. They can feel the spirits. They know what dreams mean. They know what certain dreams on certain days mean. They can see the past and the future folded together into the present. And Keith will now tell the story from Tedlock. This is a story from Dennis Tedlock about Don Mateo's magic stone. Now, and Don Mateo met this Latino from Guatemala City and his wife, who was a gringa. She was from Florida. And as they're speaking with Don Mateo, they're talking about roads. And then Don Mateo sees this person's future. And Don Mateo says, look, there are roads in your future. This is why you're so interested in roads right now. There are roads in your future. Roads have been important in your past. And right now, you have two roads in front of you. There is a black road and a white road. And the black road is large and wide and lined with flowers. And Don Mateo can't see where this road goes, but it's no place good. But the mountain, the Lord of the mountain, doesn't want you to take that road. He wants you to take the white road. The white road is a path, and it's small and tricky and hard to follow. So Don Mateo comes out with this magic stone. He says, with this magic stone. And he says, look, I'm going to give you this magic stone. And as long as you have the magic stone will tell you where the white road is, so that you don't go down the black road, which is paved with flowers. And the man from Guatemala City doesn't really listen to Don Mateo. He agrees and he takes the stone. Later, there's a dinner party, and they're over at the Guatemalan dude's house, the guy from Guatemala City. And Don Mateo goes into the man's bedroom, and he sees the stone that he gave him, but there's dust on it, and it obviously hasn't been carried. The man hasn't been carrying it, and the man hasn't even been feeding the stone. To show him the right way, you have to feed the stone. You have to give it liquor. You have to give it sacred water. You have to feed the spirit of the stone if it's going to show you the way to the white road. And Don Mateo, I forget if Don Mateo confronts him or not. I don't think it does, but Don Mateo does tell Tedlock about this. And he's like, look, this is bad. I don't feel like anything good is going to happen. And then later, the guy from Guatemala City is coming home to his house, and he sees thieves breaking into his house, and he pulls out a gun, and one of the thieves shoots and kills him in the head, and he dies. And Don Mateo gets back his magic stone, and then Don Mateo feeds the stone, and Don Mateo talks to the stone, and then Don Mateo knew what the stone wanted to help the guy, but the guy didn't use the stone to see the white road. And then he followed the black road. And at the end of the black road was someone who didn't actually want this man to come to his house under the mountain. And his name was the Blood Gatherer, God El. And there's God El, there's his merchant hat. There is the owl in his headdress, and in front of him, one of the daughters of God El. And this is how the Maya interact with the world. This is how the Maya perceive of time as timeless, and the past is the future, and the future is the past. And this is one of the reasons that the Maya have such an incredibly rich literature. It isn't just these carved monuments from the classic period, which tell the history of families, because the past of the family is also the future of the family. It's this combination of these books, which are supposed to show you what happened in the past, because what happened in the past is still happening in the present, and it is also something that will happen in the future. I hate to harp on this same thing. And if you're interested in looking at Maya literature, which is the richest literary tradition in the Western Hemisphere, it's the richest and largest of any Native American literature. There's lots of books written on the subject. These are more of Dennis Tedlock and his wife Barbara Tedlock's book. The book Time in the Ancient Maya is really good. And of course, here's the very famous Maya classic, the Popol Vuh, a pre-Columbian book that survived the conquest, even though not in its original form, and tells the story of the origin of the world, the cycle of time, how the planet is eternal and cyclical, and there is no apocalypse. And that brings us to the end of our discussion of the Maya. And what I hope I did here is kind of open a window a little bit, or as best as I can, and show you what a radically different way of perceiving the world would look like. One that involves smoking gods, daughters of merchant lords, and these incredible stories. And also, look, man, if you got a magic stone, don't forget to feed your magic stone. You gotta feed your magic stone.